Welcome to the podcast where we talk to guests about 5 moments in their lives they'll never forget. This is Backstory with Steve Legg.
It's fabulous to have you with me today on the new show, where I bring together an incredible array of stars of stage and screen, stand-up comedians and magicians, writers and artists, leaders and entrepreneurs, to chat about the 5 significant times in their lives they'll never forget. It's great to have you here. So this is very exciting. It's Mark Gatiss. What a CV from the brilliant League of Gentlemen, Sherlock and Doctor Who, plus writing and directing. Mark, what do you enjoy the most?
Well, to be honest, I enjoy having the chance to mix it up, which is how it should be, I think. I mean, sometimes I've been writing quite a lot since the end of last year, and then just now I've just been filming in Edinburgh with Steve and Reece from the League, and on the sequel to Good Omens, and it was just so nice to be out of the house,
I can imagine.
and also just having a laugh and being together and doing something different, So that really, inevitably, the mixture is what you want, the variety. And sometimes I have normal years where it really works, where there's a lovely kind of mixture of all different things, and other times so last year, which was an amazing year for me. I had the spookiest year I've ever had. So I wrote and directed the Christmas Ghost Story for BBC Two, the Mezzotint, in February, and then I spent most of the rest of the year writing and directing The Amazing Mr. Blunden for Sky, and then I was in my version of A Christmas Carol on stage. So that was like a fantastic spooky year for me. But in terms of the actual breadth of stuff, I directed 2 things. I wrote all 3 of them. I was in 2 of them, so that was kind of perfect for me. In fact, I should just retire because it'll never get any better than that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did lockdown make you more creative?
Well, a bit of both. I mean, it was a game of 2 halves for me. The first half, I was completely, but everyone was just shocked, weren't we? And there was that weird feeling of like being, everyone was in the same boat for a bit, which was quite interesting. But also that, I remember saying to Stephen Moffat, who knew that a global pandemic wasn't conducive to the muse? Everybody thought they were going to write that novel, and then they just sat and stared into space because it was actually so frightening and weird. But then the second half of it, I wrote a film which I've had in the back of my head for years, and I honestly don't know if I'd ever have got round to it after COVID, and that broke my block. I just did it because I wanted to, and it was just for fun. And after that, it's been all right. So apart from World War III, everything's okay.
Yes. So is there anything you can't do? Because you seem very talented. Can you do DIY?
No, I can't do that. I can't drive. I can't play any musical instruments. I can't speak any foreign languages. The list is endless.
What about cookery?
Oh, no, hopeless. I have an anti-Midas touch. I can take the most exotic ingredients and make them bland. It's a terrible curse, but I can't. I'm hopeless cook. Hopeless.
So what would your signature dish be, or is there not one?
I do actually, though, cook. I do like cooking a tagine.
lovely.
I've spent years trying to make that good. But, I don't know if you have this. I literally throw spices into things, and then I taste them. It's like, this tastes no different. I don't know how to do that. What I do, I stuff them full of apricots so they're very moist, and that seems to do the trick. But I do like those. But other than that, I'm like beans on toast. That's my signature dish.
Very, very nourishing. So was English and drama your thing at school?
Yes, English, drama and history, I would say, and art. And that, it was a lifelong interest in language and storytelling. And I remember I was given by Santa in Phoenix in Newcastle, because I used to visit in those days, a copy of Great Expectations when I was 5. I was obviously far too young to read it. That was my Christmas. I still got it, actually. It says on the spine, complete and unabridged. And when I finally read it, when I was about 10, I suppose, I remember getting to the twist about who Pip's benefactor was. And I felt like the earth had moved beneath my feet. It was so incredible to me that it wasn't what I expected was going to happen. I'm still not spoiling it. And it was, I remember thinking then, that is amazing. I mean, the power of that story to disconcert and confound expectations. I remember thinking, man, this is something, but that was also hand in hand with an obsession with Doctor Who and all kinds of telly and anything spooky, and also that sort of way in. I've just written this thing for the New Statesman for Michael Sheen, who's guest editing, and he asked me to write a thing about coming from a working class background and getting into show business like he did. And I think it seems to me very, very important that you have to be able to see a path for yourself. And that's why any kind of representation, whether it's racial or class based, is so important. If you don't see or hear yourself, you just think that's not for me. How could I possibly do that? So I used to study the end credits of Doctor Who religiously, and I used to think, what is that? What is a director? What's the producer? What's a script editor? And how is? I mean, it never seemed possible that I could do that. But of course you can. It's just a state of mind. You just have to push back against those perceived barriers for people like you. So
totally.
That's how I got started. Yeah.
That's fascinating. It's interesting you would talk about the book at the same sort of age, because we are the same sort of age. I'm 55. I remember on a holiday with grandparents falling in love with the works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Good.
And then was devastated when I realised it wasn't real.
Oh, I don't think I ever fell for that, but I do remember loving that thing that the Abbey National had a special secretary who answered Sherlock Holmes' letters because they would arrive. In fact, here's the thing: no one ever did this, but a friend of mine once came up with an idea which I loved, which was about, I think it was like he had something like Maureen Lipman in mind, and it was to play that part. The woman at the Abbey National who answered Sherlock Holmes' letters, who also obviously solves crimes. It's rather good, isn't it?
That's good. I like that.
It is good. It could still be done. Set it in the 50s or something. That'll be rather nice. In fact, I'm going to do that now.
Write it down.
This afternoon.
I would like a credit, though, please, because I feel I'm part of the creative process.
You re-inspired it. Yeah.
I tell you what, thinking of Doctor Who, obviously we think of Daleks and Cybermen, but I remember as a 7-year-old, the giant maggots. Does that ring any bells with you?
Are you kidding? It's my favourite ever story.
You're joking.
The Green Death, and we've in fact just lost the lovely Stuart Bevan, the actor who played Professor Cliff Jones, the one that Joe leaves the doctor for at the end. I loved him. He just died suddenly. I love that story. It's everything to me. I think it's so, looking back, it's fantastically, proto-ecologically minded. People say that Doctor Who is very woke these days, and you think, look at that. That was about pollution and the destruction of the environment in 1973, and also it had giant maggots in it. Like, what more could you want? I love that one so much. Wonderful.
And you always felt kind of safe if the Brigadier was around. Yeah,
and you can't really. To those of us, you're exactly the same vintage, but for those of us who were there, that kind of family atmosphere, and the Doctor being that kind of, it was like the grandfather you always wanted, and the Brigadier being an authority figure, but like a nice teacher, because he wasn't, it was magic, really. I think it was magic, and there's something about that. It never goes away. Sometimes I'll just pop on an old story on a Saturday afternoon where it belongs, and it still sort of presses the same buttons for me, especially if it's dark outside and it's about 5:15. You think, I think I might have to watch The Curse of Peladon. And it still makes me feel so kind of cozy, and that's a lovely feeling. It's sort of underestimated, I think. I mean, not that nostalgia is underestimated, because we're driven by it. Nothing's ever as good as it used to be as far as anyone's concerned. But it's very powerful, and in the right way, it's good for you. In the wrong way, I think it produces everything we're living with now, which is this sort of crazed idea of that we are still a great power and that we can wield influence in the world. And it's a sort of misplaced nostalgia. But
Absolutely.
when it's working for you, it's just genuinely comforting. And it's, you know, Tom Baker tells this amazing story about, he was once walking through Manchester or London, and this homeless guy was just asking for change, and then he just looked at him and said, "Doctor," and Tom looked at him, and he said he could see in his eyes that he was 7 years old again, and his mum was making him beans on toast, and everything was all right. And he said, "Get us out of here, Doctor." Oh God!
Wow. I do remember as a precocious 7 or 8 year old writing to the BBC complaining about Tom Baker, because growing up with John Pertwee, they were very different when Tom came along. And I did learn to love Tom, but he was very different.
But I remember I was in proper mourning. I remember I had a Doctor Who friend at school who knew everything. And I said, "Can he not turn back?" I was in proper mourning. But, you know, Tom triumphed, didn't he? So.
He did in the end. Mark, do you remember your first day at drama school? Did you make friends and colleagues for life there? Yes,
I do remember it very well. And I met Steve Pemberton on the first day. Yes, we bonded straight away. I think when we were laughing about this the other day, that we had to do very early on, for some reason, we had to do something where we had to put masks on, except they literally were paper plates. It wasn't like we weren't sort of crafting Italian comedian masks or something like that. They were just paper plates. We had to draw a face up, and then we had to walk around the room with these like little smiles. And I remember catching Steve's, not catching his eye, just catching his paper plate face and thinking, "I know what you're thinking." And everyone else was taking it very seriously. And I could tell even behind the paper plate that he was laughing. And I thought, well, we're all right here.
Brilliant. Were your parents always supportive, or did they encourage you to get a proper job?
They never, tried to prevent anything. I do remember doing a version. I was in a version of the Zoo Story, the Edward Albee play, two-hander at Darlington Arts Centre, the late lamented Darlington Arts Centre, when I was about 15. I remember my mum and dad came to that, and my dad was I think something changed then. He thought I was very good, and something altered where he thought maybe this is possible. And I remember that was that was a red letter day, because I didn't have to sort of keep, trying to convince them. But then, it was interesting. I left school. I took a year out, and then I auditioned for a couple of drama schools and didn't get in. And then I went to visit my old school drama teacher, and he recommended this place called Bretton Hall. And I applied there, and I got in. That's where I met Steve and Reece and Jeremy Dyson, and that's where the league was formed. So there's such a sliding doors quality to it. Everything like that. You can't. Sometimes you look back and think, "Oh my God, that was really." Thank God that happened. Thank God that happened.
Yeah.
And it did. It's funny. That's how it goes, isn't it?
This is Lieutenant Columbo, and you're listening to Steve Legg's Backstory Podcast. The most fun you can have without a cigar and a trench coat. All right, I think I bothered you enough today. I'll let you go ahead and listen. Oh, one more thing. Enjoy the show.
This is the Backstory Podcast with Steve Legg and friends.
So, Mark Gatiss, I want to chat to you about The Road Dance. Now, I'm a big fan of action thrillers. I'm a diehard Mission Impossible James Bond fan. And I heard about The Road Dance and I watched it and I thought it was fabulous.
Oh, good. It is. It's lovely, isn't it? And it's not what you'd expect. I mean, I said yes because the script turned up at the middle of everything, middle of lockdown. And it was, first of all, I thought it was charming. And a very old-fashioned sort of drama, really. But particularly for me, I am an absolute sucker for anything set in the mystical Scottish Islands. I Know Where I'm Going is one of my favourite movies. Whiskey Galore, anything like that. And although it's quite a grim story, I just love that idea of it's so north, it's almost Iceland, and that I thought it was just lovely, and as it's turned out to be, I mean, it was quite a difficult shoot. It's set in August. We shot it in September, October, and it was freezing, and the weather was wild. But it's there in the film. I think the landscapes are stunning, and it's rather lovely, isn't it? I watched it on a screen a couple of months ago, and I thought it come out really well. So I'm very, very proud of it.
Oh, I thought it was brilliant. I mean, it's a story of love and loss, birth and death, secrets and choices, all tied up in this bleak landscape and the culture of the Western Isles, which some call the edge of the world. I hadn't realised that.
That's right. Yes, Michael Powell famously. It feels like it. It feels like it when you're there. I mean, I was just so charmed. It was everything I hoped to be. My driver was this lovely man called Murdo. I think he had left the island once in his life, and they've got this just incredibly lyrical kind of strange accent and beautiful, lilting sort of accent. And he said to me one day, he said, "Mark, do you mind if a photographer comes to take a photograph for the film?" And I said, "No, of course." So, and then this man turned up the next day, I think also called Murdo, and he had this tiny old camera, and he literally just went click, and he took a photograph. He didn't take loads. He wasn't like the Pap. He took a photograph for the island paper, and that was it. And I thought, that's the most perfect thing. It's exactly what I hoped it would be. It was like it was about 1900.
What else can you tell us about the plot? Because there's twists and turns in there. Can you give us a little bit more?
Well, Hermione Caulfield plays this girl she's in love with Will Fletcher, and he's obviously called up for the First World War and goes off to fight, and we hear from him in letters. And then there's a road dancer, kind of Kaylee, and something bad happens to her, and she sort of has to live with the consequences while he's away, and then of course he's reported killed, and that's what I can say. And I played the doctor who has to look after her, it was lovely. I mean, I was quite intimidated by there being so many genuine Scots in it, like Morgan Christie, and I said, I'm from a part of Scotland called Generica. I don't know if you know it. That's where I'm coming from. But it was really lovely, and it's so, Lewis and Harris. If you ever get the chance, it's breathtaking. I mean, you get 9 seasons in a day, but it's like nowhere else I've ever been. It really feels like you're just absolutely at the edge of the world. And it's stunning, and I'm very, very grateful for the whole experience. Not least because I sort of missed the second lockdown by doing the film. I just escaped, and I was on a little plane flying there. And I thought, well, this is either like being in the Wicker Man, or it's going to be the Wicker Man. I can't quite tell.
Are there any parts of that lifestyle that you'd swap your own for?
I don't know. I think we've all come out of this different, haven't we? Not that it's over. It's just we're just pretending it is. But I think we've all sort of recalibrated and thought about what's important and who the people in our lives we should need to keep in touch with more, and also to get off the treadmill more. And I was talking to a friend the other day who said they're under huge pressure to get back into the office, and yet everyone knows that they're actually more productive at home, and also probably somewhere between the two is good. It's not good to just stay at home all the time, but maybe half the week in an office is not a bad compromise. I think something's shifted, and the rest of the world is sort of catching up with it. I think we need to rethink how we do these things.
Sure.
Because we've had this unexpected pause, and when at the height of it, it was like nothing else any of us would ever experience outside of fiction, was it? I mean, the skies cleared, the Venice lagoons had dolphins. It was amazing, and it was like the whole world stopped. It was like a sci-fi story, wasn't it? And,
it certainly was.
Yeah.
You were a wonderful Dr. McLean, a great bedside manner, if you don't mind me saying so, Mark.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, my mum would have been pleased. She always wanted me to be a doctor.
Did she? And road dance, I'd never heard that expression before.
No me. I think it may be particular to the islands. I'm not sure, but I was actually my only doubt about doing it was that I cannot dance. I'm totally dyspraxic, and if there's one word guaranteed to send a chill through my soul, it is Kaylee. I hate them, and so I thought, well, I want to do this, but I've got to find a way of not letting this sort of dominate my mind. And it even had on the call sheet there was like a Kaylee expert and all this. And weirdly, what happened was I just did it. I never had a single lesson. Me and Hermione just danced around, mostly because the weather was so wild. There was literally no time to learn anything. But I think it comes off quite nicely.
Do you know what? You were throwing out some great moves there.
There we are. You see, a triumph for dyspraxics everywhere.
So will you be throwing your hat into the ring of Strictly next season?
No, I have been asked. I've been asked, but they've given up now. I don't do that. No, that's a humiliation too far.
You'd be great. And it was lovely seeing Jeff Stewart, who of course Reg Hollis from the bill, amongst other things. I got some pals who were cast members on the bill, and they said he was an eccentric character who always worked better with his shoes off in his stocking feet. Did you notice that on set?
I didn't. Well, no, I met him only briefly. Literally when I was having my makeup test, because we never had anything together, in that way. I was up and down, and then there's a guy called Jimmy Yule who plays the old Doctor, and he was there. He had like about 3 days in the film, but because of COVID, he was basically there for about 8 weeks.
No,
he just arrived, filmed, stayed, and waited. And it had that. Saying that it was all part of the same feel. The great joy of it, above everything for me, was that I wore Stanley Baxter's toupee, and I was given it at the end of the shoot by Christine Camp, the makeup designer, and it's now my toupee of choice. I've worn it twice since already. Great.
We won't ask why.
That's like having the crown passed to you.
Oh, Mark. That is brilliant. Thank you so much. The Road Dance, what a movie. It's a film of stark and tragic scenes unfold, yet there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Mark, just last question. Do you think there's some comparisons to be made to the last couple of challenging years with COVID and lockdowns?
Yes, I do. I mean, it's, it's very hard. We've had no respite. Pestilence is literally just getting off its saddle and war rides into town and says, I'll take it from here. But the other thing which is weird is that, of course, there's been no VE day, as it were, for COVID. There's been no line drawn. Just for political expedience, we now have to get on with it. And I now know, anecdotally, more people have got it than they've ever had it. My partner, I'm literally here, and he messaged me this morning with a picture saying, I've just tested positive. He's avoided it for 2 years. He's now got it. But hopefully, obviously, it's now just like having a bad cold and sort of childish. It's like the abandonment of what government is supposed to be, which is properly altruistic. It's just like every man for himself, and that can't be right, can it? But I think in terms of finding light in the darkness, yes, it's been a very strange time. And then it's 10 years since the Olympics, and I feel like we were a very different country then. Everything did feel generally like we were moving forward. And it's been a dark time, not entirely, obviously, but certainly the last 5 or 6 years, it's been very strange. And we're not out of it yet. But I think you've got to find the joy where you can and be kind of stoical about things and think about what you can do and what you can affect genuinely yourself without your losing your mind to too much information. And I've come off Twitter and all sorts of things because it's just too much stuff. It's good and bad, mostly bad.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think anyone's brain is meant to process that amount of stuff every day. And you just literally sit there doom scrolling and thinking that there's no point in anything. And then suddenly you look you lift up your eyes and realize it's actually a beautiful spring day, and it's okay.
Yeah.
At least, for now, you just have to live in the moment. I think that's all we do.
Mark, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Will we ever see you as Q in Bond? You'd be a great Q.
I await the call.
I'll call Barbara once we're done here.
Ben's not out of a job yet, is he? I hope.
He's very good, isn't he? But Desmond Llewellyn, what a Q for so many years.
Yeah. It's interesting what they'll do now. That intrigues me, because I think they need. To me, I think that what Bond always does well is respond to the tenor of the times. The times are so dark. I think what we need is a bit more rush. I think we need to have some fun. It doesn't have to be silly. I think it needs to be a bit more fun, because we are surrounded by people like Elon Musk who are almost consciously like Bond villains. So we have to find somewhere new to go, I think. And I don't think it'll be fatal to try and put someone else in a Daniel Craig movie. Those are his films and that's his style. And I think the pendulum should swing somewhere else now.
I love it. Mark, thank you so much. There he is, Mark Gatiss.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Backstory Podcast with Steve Legg and friends. Catch you next time.